Hello everyone, Alyssa Lebrecq, nutritionist and gut expert, and I'm excited to be back for another Thursday. We just went live on Tuesday, I think it was, and did a really awesome Facebook Live talking all about elimination diets and understanding foods and knowing how to stop food reactions from happening. So if you didn't catch that, make sure you jump over to our Facebook page, click on the video tab and catch the replay, or if you're catching this from our YouTube channel, make sure that you go down to the Eating for IBS tab and check that out, because that is going to really help you start to tackle foods when we're working with IBS. And then tonight we're going to start talking about bacteria. Now, it's so interesting because a lot of people really try to fix their gut with just eating healthier, but the big thing that gets missed is bacterial imbalances. Now, you might be watching this and thinking, I'm pretty sure there's something going on down there and I'm not sure how to fix it. And so this Facebook Live tonight is for you if you're wanting to understand the risk factors that could put you in a bacterial imbalance or experiencing bacterial overgrowth, particularly the bad guys. The thing is, I know you guys are watching this and you really want to be able to eat without reaction. You want to be able to have predictable poops. And the big thing is being able to feel normal and not be in pain and not have to make excuses as to why you can't go out or get together with family or friends. And you're just really sick and tired of it affecting the quality of your life, right? And so the thing here that I want you to understand is that food isn't really the problem. There are imbalances going on inside your gut, and bacteria are often one really big culprit behind that. So I think what might be helpful is if we maybe talk through some of the symptoms that go way beyond just even gut symptoms that we commonly look at that can be signs that there is bacterial imbalance going on, right? So let's go through some of those symptoms. Obviously, your typical gas, bloating, diarrhea, and constipation that we so frequently talk about associated with the gut, those can absolutely be tied to bacterial imbalances. But what about some of those other random symptoms that are going on? Let's talk about those. Like, have you ever gotten brain fog, fatigue, memory issues, maybe moodiness or irritability? It's like someone sneezes around you and you're like, God, that's just so annoying, right? Does anyone feel a little on edge these days? So these are really common symptoms, believe it or not, that there might be a bacterial imbalance, and it's not just you having a bad day or you getting old, right? Some of the other things that can be really common with bacterial imbalances are skin issues. So if you're finding that you've got like really dry skin, maybe dandruff or acne, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, or even just itchiness, like itchy eyes, nose, ears, bum, like you were scratching it all over the place. You're like, feel like one just itchy situation, right? These are also, symptoms that you definitely don't want to ignore. There's a problem going on. And it usually starts with these small, unsuspecting symptoms. And when it's left unaddressed, it starts to snowball. And that's when we start to see more severe symptoms going on with the gut, but also hormonal imbalances. So if you have PCOS, endometriosis, any sort of hormonal imbalances going on, we definitely need to look at bacterial imbalances and your overall gut health. So, this becomes really fascinating when we start to look at the body and understand that a lot of it connects back to the gut, but a lot of it connects back to bacterial imbalances. And there are three really big risk factors that a lot of us are exposed to that will put you at risk for having an overgrowth of bad bacteria. And bad bacteria could be anything from Candida to parasites. It could be H. pylori, C. diff. It could be even SIBO, which stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so we really want to get down to the bottom of what's going on in your individual body. And when we look at some of the risk factors that expose us to these imbalances, it's not really a question of if you have a bacterial imbalance, it's how bad is it. So let's dive into those 3 risk factors. And I'm really curious, guys, I want you guys to let me know in the comments which of the 3 you're struggling with or you've experienced at some point in your life. Because the interesting thing is that it accumulates, right? Any sort of experiences that we run into that stress out the gut, it accumulates unless we are doing proper gut work, right? We're on some sort of responsive, sustainable gut repair system that helps to make up for the wear and tear that your gut has been through, okay? If you've not done any sort of gut work, taking a probiotic is not enough, guys. Taking enzymes is not enough. Eating healthy is not enough. If you are not doing more than these things to help your gut, then all of these things, these risk factors will start to snowball, and it's why you're finding your symptoms are getting worse. It's why you can eat something one day and feel fine, and then eat it the next day and it's like, holy shit, I feel 9 months bloated. What happened? Right? So when you're feeling like your symptoms are out of control and they're unpredictable, it means that you're not doing enough to fill in the missing pieces in your gut. So let's talk about these risk factors, and I'm going to share a personal story with you guys. So years and years ago, actually my whole childhood, in fact, I grew up, and this exact time of year, right at this like December 5th, I would be in the throes of bronchitis or pneumonia. And I was that kid that was like chronically sick, and on a good year I would just get it through like November, and it would ruin me right through till Christmas. And if I was lucky, I would be like breathing a little bit more clearly and feeling, you know, a bit better by Christmas Day. And it would just flatline me and couldn't breathe, would lose my voice, like hacking a lung. It was terrible. And on really bad years, I would get it in the summer too. Now, if you've ever had bronchitis, you want to know what's worse than bronchitis in the winter is bronchitis in the summer, in like the heat of summer when you're hot as hell and it's humid. And I'll never forget, we have this arts and crafts festival that comes to my hometown every summer. And it was so freaking hot this one year, and I didn't want to miss it because we went every year. And so I remember going down there with my mom, and I had bronchitis that year, and I just about died in the heat. And we ended up actually having to leave early because I was really not doing well. But all to say, you know, constantly being sick led me to constantly having to take antibiotics. And so the first risk factor is if you've ever had to take antibiotics or you're continually being put on antibiotics, this is something that will absolutely help to kill off any sort of sickness that you're fighting, but it also helps to kill off any sort of good bacteria, right? So it's going to kill off any bad bacteria, but it's also going to wipe out your good bacteria. And so what I didn't know back then was that I kept cleaning house, so to speak, right? So every time I worked to get rid of the bad bacteria, I also was losing good bacteria. And then I'd get sick again, the bad bacteria would go up, and so I'd take an antibiotic, and then it would reduce my bad bacteria and also reduce my good bacteria. And then this kept repeating, right? And I just became so depleted that when you don't have enough good bacteria in your body, they're like bouncers at the door keeping bad bacteria out. Well, guess what? The bad bacteria are going to come in and take over. And they're like, hey, like this chick's going to feed me. It's warm in here, rent free. I think I'm going to like take over and repopulate and just create a little family, right? And so if you've ever had to take antibiotics, or if you've been on several rounds of antibiotics, let me know in the comments below, because that's definitely one of the number one risk factors for bacterial imbalances coming to be. All right. Now, as my life continued on, I eventually started to get my immune system under control. That was when I started to work on fixing my gut. And before that really happened, though, I was in university, and I was in an abusive relationship throughout university for 4 years. And that was an extremely stressful period of my life. It was a really hard, dark period of my life. And we don't need to get into all the details of that, but the big take home from this was the amount of stress that I was under and what I was having to do on a day-to-day basis to really cope and live in that kind of scenario was extremely stressful, not only emotionally, but physically for my body. And so the second risk factor is stress. And you might be sitting at home watching this thinking, like, I'm not really stressed right now, Alyssa. Like, I'm good. Like, I've got a supportive spouse, or I've got a roof over my head, my kids are lovely, and I've got food in my belly, and like all is well in the world. But I find when a lot of people tell me they're not stressed, a lot of people really mean to say, like, comparatively speaking, things are good, It could be so much worse, so who am I to feel stressed? And the reality is it doesn't matter what the actual stressor is, it's the feeling you take away from things. And so you might not be feeling stressed today, but if you have a busy mind, that also doesn't help, and that's stressful on the body. And you might not be feeling stressed today, but if you've ever had stress in your past, or been through traumatic experiences, whether it be a big T trauma or a small T trauma, it doesn't matter, right? Stress is extremely damaging on the gut, and it accumulates. And so again, if you've not done any sort of gut repair work in between these stressors and this wear and tear, then these symptoms are going to start to snowball and accumulate. And that's exactly what happened in my life. So with stress, what studies have shown us is it depletes your good bacteria, which, if we go back to number 1, your antibiotics also cleaning out your good bacteria. This is not good. But it also depletes your digestive enzymes. It affects motility. It can cause gut permeability. This is what we call leaky gut. And so stress or busy-mindedness is an absolute gut killer. And what it does is it cleans house. It sort of wipes out any sort of structural strength your gut could have to keep bad bacteria out, and allows the doors to remain wide open for bad bacteria to come in and take over. Okay, so after I was in my 4th year of university, and it was right at Christmas break, okay? It was right at Christmas break, and all shit hit the fan, we'll put it that way, okay? And basically my life came absolutely crumbling down, and I was able to rebuild myself. But at the time, it didn't feel particularly great. I built up the strength to leave that relationship. And going back at the end of Christmas break, I actually I went back at the end of Christmas break, and I barely got through my last semester of university. I was just barely surviving and coping through life. I had no idea who I was, and I had been through so much stress emotionally and physically for the last 4 years that I was just a wreck on all levels. And so not only had I dealt with sort of this accumulation of antibiotics over the years and stress and my body becoming so depleted, by this point in my life, I had already started to develop bacterial imbalances, okay? Because again, those 2 risk factors, antibiotics and continual stress. And when you start to have a bacterial imbalance, well, here's what happens, guys. You start to crave sugar, because sugar is what these bacteria live off of. But also when you've been through stress, and again, it doesn't have to be big T trauma. It could be just, everyday stressors. You don't have to have been through an abusive relationship like I have. But going through these scenarios certainly don't help. And we're not comparing stressors, but if you've ever been through stress, any kind before, eventually what starts to happen is you emotionally eat initially while you are working to sort through those emotions. Most people don't handle those emotions in a healthy manner up front, and I certainly was not one of those people. And so, the number one way that I was coping with a lot of that was through food. And because I had already started developing a bacterial imbalance, it also didn't help because I was craving sugar like crazy. And so the third risk factor is sugar, right? And so I constantly had sugar throughout my day, whether it was through like fast food type refined carbs, right? So white flours and white pastas and all of that stuff. And when those break down and digest, they break down into sugars. Or whether I was sitting in front of the TV with a bag of candy, right? Bulk Barn, if you're in Canada, Bulk Barn was the devil, because I'd go to, for those in the States or the UK, Bulk Barn in Canada is this store that has these big bulk bins, like lined up. It's aisles and aisles of bulk bins filled with junk food. Now they have now rounded it out. They've got like, you can buy grains and pastas and spices and anything you need in bulk. But at the time, I obviously was hitting up the candy and chocolate and chip aisle, right? So all of this sugar, guys, further feeds into a bacterial imbalance. And so these three things are really, really, really not going to help your gut. And so when we look at fixing your gut, and people come to me, they're like, I have tried the low FODMAP diet, Alyssa, I've tried the elimination diet, I've tried all of these diets, I've taken out foods, I'm eating healthy. The problem is by this point, you have some serious damage and deficiencies that are going on in your gut. And I'm sharing this story with you because it too has been accumulating throughout your whole life. And so one of the biggest mistakes that people make is a lot of people, either there's two camps, right? So there's the first type of person that doesn't realize that bacteria, they even have bacteria. They don't even realize that bacteria might be part of the problem that's contributing to their gut. And then there's the second group of people that are like, I'm pretty sure there is some sort of bacterial something going on here and I need to do something about it. And so the big mistake that people make is when they realize that bacteria might be the problem is they go out to these health food stores and they buy some random supplement that is supposed to cleanse out bacteria. But the big problem with that, guys, is you need to understand what type of bacterial overgrowth you have. Again, do you have SIBO? Do you have parasites? Do you have H. pylori? Do you have Candida? Do you have C. diff? Like, what's going on inside your gut? And then the second big mistake that people make is they don't fix the reason why the bacteria came in the first place. So the root of it is these risk factors, but also then we have to address the damage and deficiencies that these risk factors caused while we're dealing with the bacteria. Does this make sense to everyone? So again, the question, guys, isn't really, do you have bad bacteria? It's how bad is it? And in order for us to really get fixing that, we don't want to just kick them out. We also have to fix the reason that they came in the first place. And so be really, really mindful of your use of antibiotics, and sometimes they're necessary, but then we also have to love up your gut hard when you are on them and long after you've taken antibiotic. The second thing is really taking evaluation on your stress level, and maybe you're sitting at home again thinking that you're not stressed, but my question to you would be is, do you have a busy mind? And if your answer is yes, then my friend, your body is stressed, right? And then the third thing is really taking an inventory on the amount of sugar that you are consuming. And maybe you are avoiding sugar like the plague, but you are craving it like it's your day job. Either way, we need to take a look at that. So I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments which of the three, maybe it's all of them, maybe it's two of them, I don't know. But let me know which of the ones we talked about today, the three risk factors, have you been exposed to in your life, and which ones are you working with right now? Are you feeling, in the heat of stress? Are you maybe on an antibiotic? Or are you eating all the dang sugar? Let me know in the comments which one you are working with, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.